Hey y'all, I'm back with a project share. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen this little locket that I shared there recently. Um, I had this idea. You know how, have you ever had an idea where it pops in your brain and then it nags and nags and nags at you until you act on it? Well, that's what this was. It's like I had this idea. I don't know where it came from. It just popped in my brain, and I literally dropped everything because I really had a lot of other things I ought to be doing. But instead, I was determined to make this locket. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just started, and it ended up with this. And I knew when I had the idea that I would use my vintage, all my vintage fabrics. I love vintage textiles in general, and I've been able to collect quite a bit over the years from when I go on my junking excursions. And then I have a couple of really dear friends that think of me and give me some really beautiful old clothing and other pieces. So that's what I knew. I knew that I would dig through my stash and find a fabric to use, so that's what I did. So this one, the first one I made out of a vintage silk doll dress. This is the bodice. I've actually cut some off of it, but the skirt itself is in shreds, literally. I mean, it's just shredded. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that part yet, but I will find a use for the shredded silk. So since it was so delicate, I did have to reinforce it, but I ended up with this little locket, love locket, and it's the smallest journal I've ever made. I've never made a journal this small until this one. Inside there's a little pocket, a little lace pocket that holds another love note. It's a heart, of course. And the paper I used is Japanese paper. It's I don't know the name of it. I would have to look it up because I don't remember, but it's very thin, very fine, and a lot like tracing paper, the weight, so it doesn't weight the journal down. So to me, that was like the perfect paper, but it's pretty strong. So you could definitely write in here. You could glue teeny tiny pictures in here too, if you wanted to. Ooh, how many times did I say two? I don't know. Yeah, so this one's reinforced because it's so delicate, and then I did a lot of hand stitching and embroidery, and then I put a little dangle on the bottom. So when I did that one, a lot of people, I shared that, and a lot of people really liked it, and I was ready to make some more because I wanted to do some more experimenting, and I wanted to use some different fabrics, and so I did. And so now I have some that I can actually share with y'all. This one is about the same size as the first one I made, except this one's made from a vintage dress, little girl dress, with this beautiful red tatting. It's on the neck, around the neck and the sleeves, and so I used that part of the little vintage dress to make the heart. And then I did some quilting on here. The back is this fabric wasn't quite as delicate, even though it was holey and everything. It's not as delicate, so I did reinforce it, but I was able to use a solid piece and then just quilt on it. This one, the closure is a little vintage button. I love square buttons. Do y'all love square buttons too? I don't know, I have this thing about square buttons. This one is lined with another fabric that came from another this one, actually, the polka dot, is a doll dress. This was a little baby dress, a person dress. And the lining is a doll dress that's also vintage. I think that one's from the 50s. I think both of these actually are from the 50s. I'm not sure exactly, but I'm thinking the fabrics both date from that era. Then there's some vintage fabric here that I use as a pocket, and so there will be a little love note just like this one. All of them will come with a special heart that will go in each pocket. I use the same paper, the Japanese paper, and so since this one's spit that out. Since this one is small, you know, you're going to have a very small real estate to write on. And again, the paper is delicate, so you'll have to use some care, but it's not, I mean, you're going to have to really force it to rip this paper. You could also go back and reinforce the narrow spaces if you wanted to. I wanted to keep this lightweight so it didn't weight down the journal itself, and so then you could determine, you know, what you wanted to put in it to make it, you know, to fill it up. So, okay, so here's this one. You could also, if you want, you could trim this thread and make it shorter. I left it long to allow for expansion, and then I like the dangle too. So, but obviously that could be changed if you want to. This one is the largest one of this set, and it's over 2 inches at the widest point. This one's really neat because this came from a collar of a toddler coat, which I don't have that coat here. But you couldn't see it anyway because it's too big to show you on this table. Anyway, okay, so this is, I'm thinking this is 50s, late 50s, early 60s. It's an old rayon, like an early type of rayon fabric. It is not silk, but it feels very silky. But it isn't. It's like a rayon. And the reason why I chose this one the way I did is it came from the collar of the coat. And can you see all this handwork here? Some mama or some grandmother, I don't know, somebody made this coat and put so much love in it. Look at that. That's all the collar. And then I added some more vintage fabric here to finish it off. But this is all handwork from that collar, and I wanted to preserve it. You know, that's part of the reason why I love working with vintage fabrics so much, especially ones that have been hand worked, you know, whether it's hand stitched, like actually sewn by hand, or embroidered, is that to me, every stitch is love, and every stitch that I put in here is love. It's me loving you. That's what that means to me. And so when I see these old pieces, that's what I see, is I see this love somebody put into it, and then they develop the expertise to be able to create beautiful things, you know. So I like to preserve them, especially ones that are in terrible shape, you know, that most people probably would throw away. But to me, they're treasure. They're not, you know, they're not to be thrown away, and they can be made into something new, and the love can be carried on. That sounds kind of cheesy, doesn't it? I really don't mean it in a cheesy way, but it's true. I mean, that's really true. Okay, we'll move on. This one is, I use a snap closure, and again, because this fabric is old, I would use great care when you unsnap it and actually grab the snap with your finger. You know what I mean? Like hold the snap when you snap it. Any kind of old clothes or delicate fabrics, you know, y'all know that, right? To do that. Because if you just pull on the fabric, it will just, even though I reinforced it over time, it'll just, I'm afraid it might break just because it's fairly delicate. I mean, it's sturdy, don't get me wrong. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. All right, I'll stop. Okay, this one is lined in some vintage music paper, because this rayon was in pretty good shape, but I wanted to give it a little more body because it was bigger. There's a piece of lace here that again there will be a love note in there that you can write on. I reinforced this first page with the music paper itself, and since this is a larger locket, you get quite a bit more paper real estate with this one that you can write on and write your love notes in. And then of course this one has a dangle too. And this one's larger, so I mean, you could definitely wear this on a chain, you know, as a locket for sure. This would also make a really great charm because it is larger. The other thing I thought about that I thought these love lockets would be really neat for, in fact, I wish that I would have thought about this years ago when I got married, is that these would be really great for something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, you know. So the bride could wear this actually as a locket, or tucked into her pocket, you know, with love notes in there that she could, you know, that her future husband could write in it, or her parents. I think that'd be really cool, as if the parents did this and like wrote love notes. I don't know. Possibilities are endless here, I think, with these love lockets. You could just do a lot of different things with them. And the other thing I'll mention right now too is I would love to be able to do some custom work. If you're interested in these and you have some fabrics that belong to someone that you love, whether they're still with you or not, or you wanted to, you know, create something for your wedding or for a friend's wedding or whatever, something that's custom where you send me your beloved fabric, whether it's vintage or whatever, and then I create your love locket for you. If you're interested in something like that, I would love to work with you. And so just send me a message. You can send it to me here on YouTube or through Instagram or on Facebook, or if you go to my website, phaedrajones.com, you can reach me there too. So it's really easy to find me. And I would love to do that. I mean, I would be honored actually to do that. So I think this would be really great too if you have somebody you've lost and you have some of their belongings, you know, their clothes or their handkerchiefs or whatever, you know, something that belonged to them that you treasure. This would be a really great way to reinvent it, so to speak, and keep it close to your heart all the time. Would be a love locket. Okay, so the other two are also smaller. They're a tad bigger. Well, this one's about the same size. Oh no, it is a tad bigger. Okay, so these both are a tad bigger than the blue one. This fabric came from a vintage toddler like slip, you know, or nightgown. It's a very fine cotton batiste fabric. So I did line it with a newer fabric. It's a Japanese fabric. I love this fabric. It's miniature roses. So it's really durable because this fabric was quite delicate. So I wanted to make sure it had plenty of support. And then I embroidered on this one a little bit with some rayon embroidery floss and some silk, some Japanese silk floss as well. And this has a little bit of lace edging that came from that original little slip too, and with a little pearl dangle. This one has a pink lace pocket that will have a love note in it. And then this reinforced first page, I have the pull as a piece of vintage lace that you can hold on to and pull out your paper. And in the back I kept pretty simple too. And then the last one is I use a piece of the same fabric as this one from the little slip. So this lace right here is from that slip as well, and so is this piece. And I layered it on top of some fabric that was in really good shape. It's vintage. It's a vintage pink gingham, but it's in really great shape and really strong. And I also did a solid pink too with some embroidery and a little dangle. And this also has a pocket, except this pocket's different. I used some of my shorthand paper. I love this paper. It's from a vintage textbook on shorthand. I love that book. I need to find more of those books because once this one's gone, I will be so sad because I love this paper. Anyway, this one's different in that it's top loading, so I'm going to show you with this little note, but this will have its own little note that will fit down in there, and it'll be a pretty large note, actually will fit in there, so that will have that note. And then I used a piece of rickrack as the pull on this one, on this accordion. So that's the last one. So if you're interested in any of these that I've shown you, or if you're interested in a commission where I make something just for you out of something special, some special fabric that you have for yourself or as a gift or whatever, I would love to hear from you. So let me know. And these will be in my shop In fact, when I list this video, when I upload it, I will have these already listed in my shop. So the link will be in the description too, which is just on my website, phaedrajones.com, and it's the shop/shop is where you'll find these. Anyway, if you're still here and you've watched the entire video, thank you so much. I really appreciate your interest and your support. I get so many really kind comments here on YouTube, and I am so appreciative of that, and I appreciate your time. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.